Hello, this is Brianna Volmer, and this is EDL 850's Module 12 case study, Copyright and the Computer. Let's start with some objectives for this presentation. First, I'm going to summarize the case and report any legal or ethical issues. I'll synthesize what has happened and the facts. I will review and prioritize the information. I will identify options and possible consequences to find a solution to the case study. I will be answering questions specific to this case study that have been provided. I will evaluate my options and choose the best solution for a positive outcome. Let's start with a case summary. This case takes place at St. Regis School, a rural school located 25 miles from a large city that serves grades K through 8. Teachers requested that Mrs. Lynn, the library media specialist, make copies of newly purchased software programs so that programs could be installed on computers in all classrooms. Mrs. Brandon, a new teacher to the building, receives a copy of the copied programs and is concerned with copyright violations. She relays her knowledge of the copied programs to her principal, Mr. Sample. Mr. Sample approaches Mrs. Lynn to inform her of copyright violations, and her reaction is that she is saving the school money. She also states that the PTA president, Mrs. Evans, helped her make the copies of the software. Let's talk more about St. Regis School. It's located 25 miles from a large city. It serves students in grades K through 8. The student population is around 420 students. There are 2 teachers per grade level and 2 special education teachers serving the entire building. There's a library and media specialist and a computer laboratory teacher, all in one position. The financial support of St. Regis, there's meager state allocations. There are 2 major fundraising efforts each year, candy and gift wrap sales and parent-sponsored spring fling race, and activities to go along with it. The school's annual budget provides basic materials for teachers, with a small extra amount dedicated to purchasing either computers or new software for classrooms. Who all is involved in this case? Mr. Keith Sample is the principal of St. Regis and has been for the past 3 years. Mrs. Evans is the PTA president. Mrs. Lynn is the library media specialist and computer lab teacher. Mrs. Williams is an experienced 3rd grade teacher who has spent her entire career at St. Regis. Mrs. Brandon is a new 3rd grade teacher, and there are many building teachers that are discussed but not specifically named. What are the roles of each individual? Mrs. Lynn initially distributes a form for teachers to request software programs for use in classrooms. The software is installed and properly used for 4 months. Despite copyright restrictions, she makes copies of computer programs on the flash drives to distribute to teachers. When Mr. Sample questions Mrs. Lynn about the copied software, she states, "Making multiple copies of the new programs makes the technology available to so many more teachers and students. Our parents worked hard to earn that money, and I've been told that many teachers want to have these programs copied and installed on their classroom computers." The group of teachers approaches Mrs. Lynn with an idea to make copies of purchased software to install on all individual students' computers. Mrs. Williams is a 3rd grade teacher who receives copied programs that are available to all teachers, and she's very excited about it. Mrs. Brandon, she tells Mrs. Lynn that she is concerned about copyright restrictions after receiving the copies of the computer programs. She also tells Mrs. Lynn that teachers were not allowed to make multiple copies. She approaches Mr. Sample with the information of the copied software programs. She seems to be very informed of copyright laws and restrictions. She goes through the proper channels of ordering programs and refuses the copies that were given to her by Mrs. Lynn that were illegally copied. The PTA president is Mrs. Evans, and she helped Mrs. Lynn copy computer software to distribute to teachers at St. Regis, and she believes that she is helping the school save money. Mr. Sample is the principal. He was informed of copies of computer software being made by Mrs. Lynn, and the PTA president was given specifics of which programs were made and to whom they were distributed. He confronted Mrs. Lynn about the copied programs and their distribution. Makes Mrs. Lynn aware that what she is doing is a violation of copyright and will mean serious consequences for the school and the school district if she is discovered by the publisher. States that he will collect all copies and that Mrs. Lynn is to stop making others. So what has happened thus far? A group of teachers approaches Mrs. Lynn about making copies of purchased computer software programs to distribute to all teachers to use on independent student computers. Upon receiving copies of the copied software, Mrs. Brandon is concerned about copyright violations and relays the information to her principal, Mr. Sample. Mr. Sample informs Mrs. Lynn that she is to hand over copied programs and immediately stop further copying of computer software programs. Mrs. Lynn believes that she's saving the school money by making copies of the programs. My synthesis: after teachers at St. Regis School request that copies be made of purchased computer software, the media specialist makes the copies and distributes them to teachers in the building. Let's talk about the issues at hand. There's many of them. There have been copyright violations by many teachers and stakeholders at St. Regis School. Mr. Sample is an outsider of St. Regis that wants to maintain his supporters and is still moving towards what his vision is of the school, and I don't believe he's implemented any programs or policies into the school yet. There clearly has been a lack of information and education about copyright and are no clear policies implemented within the staff of St. Regis. There is tension that has not been addressed between Mrs. Brandon and Mrs. Lynn. Mrs. Lynn is mad that Mrs. Brandon told Mr. Sample that they were in copyright violation. Mrs. Lynn does not feel as if she's in the wrong and has almost threatened Mr. Sample with calling PTA officers. She also does not listen to Mr. Sample's instructions about the copies that were made. Although the PTA is passionate about students at St. Regis, they are not adhering to copyright rules. Some issues I foresee in the future if this situation is not taken care of: further copyright violations by the staff, repercussions from the current copyright violations, continued animosity amongst the staff, loss of employees. They could potentially leave their positions. Mr. Sample cannot implement his vision if he cannot implement and enforce policies about copyright. The school PTA is facilitating copyright violations. Some facts about this case: copyright laws have been violated. Multiple teachers have violated copyright laws by copying programs and utilizing these programs. The PTA has helped to violate copyright laws. Teachers are clearly aware of their actions and that they're violating copyright laws, but continue to copy and distribute the programs. Who does this affect? It affects the entire school community as a whole. It affects the teachers, students, stakeholders, Mr. Sample, the principal, Mrs. Lynn, the group of teachers who initiated the idea of copying programs, Mrs. Brandon, the Board of Education, the superintendent, and the entire PTA organization. Some unknown information, some things that we just don't know. We do not know if there's a school or district policy about copyright. It doesn't talk about that. We do not know if there's been copyright training opportunities for all teachers, staff, parents, students, and organizations that volunteer or help with the school. I think this would help put into context if they know that they're not supposed to be doing the things that they're doing. We do not know if there's been a breach of contract by any teacher that has accepted copied programs. We do not know if there's been a breach of contract with Mrs. Lynn, Mrs. Evans, or the group of teachers that proposed the copyright infringement idea. Information about the software itself, what are its copyright rules and different things like that. Does the district have a technology staff that is in charge of the technology needs of the school? I think this would put it into context as well if they went against what the technology staff requires to happen. Who needs to know about this situation and be informed? The superintendent needs to know, the Board of Education, and then all members of the PTA organization. Let's prioritize this information. The actions of many could be very damaging to the entire school community and to many stakeholders involved with the school. Penalties could include payment of the amounts of damages of profits, payment of damages of each violation, payment of attorney fees and court costs, and even jail time. Who is involved is a very important piece of the puzzle to take action for this case study. First, who made the copies of the software is important. Second, who accepted and is currently using the copies. And third, who refused to accept the copies. I believe I know enough about this case study to proceed with the decision. Some legal issues at hand. There's a clear violation of the 1976 U.S. Copyright Act by St. Regis School by multiple teachers, and it's helped and facilitated by the PTA. Mrs. Lynn has refused to comply with Mr. Sample's orders as her authority figure or principal. Some ethical issues at hand. Mrs. Lynn is upset with Mrs. Brandon about her objection to the copied materials. Mrs. Lynn was informed by multiple sources that she has violated copyright law and is still defending her actions by making the school save money. Mrs. Lynn threatened Mr. Sample with calling PTA officers to explain how much money she's saving. I believe that this has an undertone of her throwing her weight around, for lack of a better term. The PTA wants to save money through making copies of computer software rather than legally purchasing it. Harm. Mrs. Brandon has been put into harm's way legally and emotionally. She is clearly informed about her rights and following the law, and the school is putting her in harm's way. The entire staff, district, and PTA has been put in harm's way legally. No one has been harmed physically. The relationship of the PTA and the school, I believe, has been damaged or will continue to be damaged in the future. Some options we have. I have 5. Option 1 is to take no action, allow the copied software programs to continue to circulate and be used, and no disciplinary action is taken on the involved parties. Option 2 is to inform the superintendent and Board of Education of the copyright violation and solicit input about actions to be taken. Option 3 would be collect all material and ensure that all programs were removed from all school-issued devices, take no action with the teachers and PTA that were involved with the copyright infringement. Option 4 is to collect all material and ensure that all programs were removed from all school-issued devices that have been illegally obtained. Mrs. Lynn is fired for copyright infringement. The teachers who had the idea of copying the material and accepted and used the programs would be formally written up or suspended and forced to attend copyright training before returning to work. I would strongly suggest that the PTA president be removed from her position. Option 5 would be to inform the superintendent and school board of the situation, collect all material, and ensure that all programs were removed from all school-issued devices that have been illegally obtained. Mrs. Lynn would be required to immediately attend copyright training before returning to work. Disciplinary action would be taken if she violated any school or board policies. Hold a meeting as a staff to discuss the copyright issues. Required training would be attended by all teachers as soon as possible. A school policy would be implemented and required training would be conducted each year for all staff. I would attend the next PTA meeting and discuss with them the copyright violations and discuss PTA members attending future training on copyright. Consequences of these options. Option 1, we would continue to be in violation of copyright laws and face a lawsuit from the publisher. Students and adults would consequently be unsuccessful. Staff members and the PTA would believe that they can continue to do what they wish. Some staff would feel betrayed that that you are going against their ethics. I could personally lose my job, or teachers may leave the district. Option 2, no real action is taken. Our school will still be facing a lawsuit and there has been no solution to the problem at hand. Option 3, our school will still be facing a lawsuit. I'm not educating teachers about copyright and holding them accountable for their actions, thus leaving the door open for future problems with copyright. Option 4, this option would negatively impact our school culture. A teacher would lose their job. I could create animosity amongst the PTA and myself. I could face issues if there are no policies in place that Mrs. Lynn has violated. Option 5, our school could still be facing a copyright lawsuit and the PTA may be upset about finances. Let's evaluate my options. Option 1, this would be the easiest option to pursue because I do nothing. This option would, however, create a great deal of problems legally and ethically and would not be showing my true character in the best interests of my school and its students. Option 2, I would be gaining important opinions on what action should be taken, but there has not been a solution created or implemented. Option 3, this would ensure that the copy materials are no longer being circulated or being used. This option, however, does not allow me to educate those that are in violation of copyright. They are also not held accountable. Option 4, this is the most penalizing and harsh option. I do not believe that this option would align with my values or who I am as a leader. It is important that I offer opportunity to learn from mistakes, and this option would not allow the teachers involved to do so. Option 5, this option would allow me to offer opportunities for my school community to grow and learn. I would still be holding the teachers and PTA members accountable that violated copyright laws. It would also offer opportunity to educate our school community in the future, as well as evaluate necessary policies in place by the Board of Education, superintendent, and myself as school leaders. My choice would be option 5. I feel that this would be the best choice for a positive outcome considering the circumstances. I would start by informing the superintendent and the Board of Education about what took place and keep the lines of communication very open. I would hold a meeting for all teachers and volunteers that work for the school or PTA members. Together with the entire staff, we would collect and destroy all copied materials and remove them from computers or electronic devices. I would have a conference with Mrs. Lynn to discuss the violations. She would then be required to participate in copyright training before returning to work as the library media specialist. Further disciplinary action would be taken per board or school policy, and we just don't know that. Together with the superintendent, we would construct a school policy for guidelines in regards to copyright if there's not already one. All staff would be required to participate in copyright training at our next staff meeting. Training before the beginning of the school year will be a new requirement at St. Regis School for all staff. PTA members will be strongly encouraged to attend copyright training with teachers at St. Regis. Yearly trainings will continue to be available and encouraged to attend by all PTA members. New ideas for fundraising would be entertained to ensure the proper channels are followed to obtain new computer software. Let's talk about the importance of my decision. My choice to destroy the programs that were copied, which violated copyright laws, is the best choice for a positive outcome. It will promote the success and well-being of each student and adult. I believe that it will help to educate teachers involved in copying and accepting the copies. It also serves as an opportunity to reflect on school policy and update or implement policies to make St. Regis School successful. It is evident that my choice will ultimately enable the students of St. Regis to be better prepared for college, careers, and life. If we promote the proper ways to purchase software, we promote students using the proper pathways and tools to educate themselves and achieve success in whichever path they choose to travel, whether that be through college or career readiness. My choice will help to promote a collaborative effort among key stakeholders. Before this altercation, it seemed as if the PTA and the teachers were not working towards the common goal of making St. Regis ultimately successful. It is my intent to unite all stakeholders for a positive school culture. My choice will help to support every student and adult's learning and development. I will provide opportunity to educate the entire school community of St. Regis on copyright and how to work hard to make ourselves successful. It is my goal to inspire our staff to create new approaches to making what we have work for the betterment of our students. We must challenge ourselves to utilize what we have and what we have acquired properly to promote student learning. I will say that the school community is passionate about educating students, but it is my intent to channel that passion to doing things the right way and the legal way. I would like to create challenging and supportive conditions conducive to each student's learning. I would like to also channel the passion that the school community has into giving our students the best education that we can offer at St. Regis. My choice will help create positive work conditions for teachers. If I have clear policies that everyone is expected to follow, it will not be the burden of any teacher to ensure that they are being followed. My choice will help to allocate resources and help create opportunities to raise the funds to resource the computers of our students. My choice will ensure that policies and systems are constructed to make all teachers successful at St. Regis School. My choice will also help promote deep, meaningful work outside the classroom for teachers. I will help facilitate the PTA and their ideas to bring more funding into the school, and hopefully the teachers will help with those actions. It is also a goal to implement policy that all purchased software be installed on school-issued computers by a technology expert to ensure copyright is followed in the future. This issue has allowed me to reflect on past experiences to make sure these issues do not happen again in the future. Let's answer some questions to put everything into context and my decision to put my decision into context. How can principals balance support from parents with interference with school operations? As a principal, it is important to build relationships with parents, and in the case of this case study, the PTA. I would make it a point to attend PTA meetings and keep the lines of communication open to help make the organization successful and meet the needs of our students. What school policies need to be developed to prevent this situation in the future? A policy that implements guidelines for following copyright needs to be implemented district-wide, just not at St. Regis. Clear processes need to be outlined for copyright violations. So if I violate copyright, what's going to happen, so on and so forth. Training on copyright needs to be at a minimum yearly occurrence, if not bi-yearly, to ensure that we follow copyright policy. Did I analyze how the law and policy are applied fairly, equitably, and ethically? I analyzed the law and policy as it pertains to copyright for this case study. I was able to apply my knowledge of copyright laws and how to ultimately make the teachers at St. Regis successful given the circumstances at hand. How would I communicate policies? I believe that keeping the lines of communication about the copyright violations is important to all stakeholders involved in this situation. I don't think anyone wants to be surprised by these actions. Informing all parties about what happened, what is going to happen, and what needs to change for the future is important for the success of St. Regis as adults and students. How would I monitor and ensure adherence to laws? Policies will be implemented as to how to acquire new software programs for school use. Prior approval will also be needed before installing new software onto school devices in the future. What are some of the key strategies for involving community members in school planning? Some strategies would include providing opportunities to educate community members, informing them of policies in place about purchasing software and installing it, communicating school policies with organizations so that they can follow them. If they haven't been communicated at all, they're not expected to adhere by the policies, so communication is key. In what ways do current laws, regulations, policies, and procedures impact meeting various needs? There's a financial burden for small school districts when it comes to meeting the needs of students. It is every school community member's intent to do what is best for students, but we must follow laws and policies to protect our school from fines and protect our teachers and their jobs and their careers. How would I use technology to improve the quality and efficiency of operations and management, as far as acquiring equipment and technology and monitoring its maintenance and appropriate use? In the future, I plan to implement a policy that states all purchase software programs need to be approved prior to purchasing them. Prior approval needs to be acquired before purchase programs are installed on computers. How will I develop a plan for acquisition and maintenance of equipment and technology? If the district has a technology professional, it will be their job and their job only to purchase and install new equipment and technology for teacher and student use. If the district does not have a technology professional, there would be a procedure for gaining permission to purchase and install new programs. I think that this will help copyright laws be followed. How would you use technology to improve the quality and efficiency of operations and management, implement an appropriate internet use policy, and monitor its compliance? It would be an immediate need to implement an internet use policy for students and staff at St. Regis if it's not already implemented. It would be my responsibility to monitor teachers' compliance of policies by utilizing programs. Currently, we use GoGuardian here at Levack County High School to ensure students and staff are abiding by our acceptable use policy, and I would like to implement a program as well that would help me. Humans are humans, and I want to make sure that these programs would help correct those errors and monitor students and staff alike. My reflection, this case study gave me an opportunity to grow as a future building leader. This case is very easy to relate to. I have background in teaching in a small town community where funding is hard to come by. It is important that I take the time to implement policies in the future to ensure that all teachers in my building and students alike are successful. It is necessary that I learn how to improve communication with all stakeholders and teachers so that policies and laws are not violated. Thank you and have a really good day.